work we do at Essence is not just a mission, but it's a
mandate.
My name is Asha Bandele, and it is my joy to be sitting here with Susan Taylor, whom I was lucky enough to waddle into her office at 4.5 months pregnant, and you could not ask for a better caretaker. I've loved her for all of these years, all my years at Essence with you as a senior editor, and now as your senior advisor at National Care's Mentoring Movement. Thank you for taking a moment to sit with me, Susan.
Can't let you go, Asha. Can't let you go.
You know, I was thinking after everything that's happened in the last 12 months, what we most need is courage. I think about what Maya said, Dr. Maya, not Maya, but Dr. Maya.
Hey, listen,
Right,
she
right.
would
No,
correct you were
that's
she
right.
here.
That's right. But Dr. Maya was a phone call that you actually arranged for us to have. And when she really talked about to do anything well, you need courage. And I know that so much that you've created seems normal every day to us now, but there was a first. And that first began with you. What kind of courage did it take? What was, when you started doing it in the spirit, what was the hardest to write or say?
You know, I don't name it courage. It's service. And if you love the community and you're devoted to serving the community, you do and deliver what the community needs. And so it didn't take courage to write about spirituality in a magazine, because when I began writing in the spirit, there was no popular magazine in this nation that was writing about spirituality and the Holy Spirit. And no journalist inside of our community has ever asked me why. But so many outside of our community said, you must get, a lot of blowback from people talking about God, talking about the Creator, talking about the Holy Spirit. Never once in the, how many years? 27 years I wrote, in the spirit. I guess, what made me pause was, what was I going to write about? When I became the editor-in-chief of the magazine, I hadn't gone to college at that point. I subsequently went back, but I was following Marsha Ann Gillespie, a brilliant, brilliant writer. And I just said, be yourself. Write about what you care about most and what you're most interested in investigating. And it was spirituality. So the column was named in the spirit. And my second editorial really talked about how I came to spirit, how my life fell apart. I thought I was having...
Tell that story.
Well, I thought I was having an anxiety attack, and all week long my heart was pounding fast. I was working at Essence. For those Essence folks who are going to be listening to this and watching it, know that I was making $300 a month.
Right.
And my rent was $368, so there was a lot of stress. I ended up at the hospital thinking it was a heart attack. The doctor said it's an anxiety attack. And I left the hospital that day in New York City, walked north when I should have been walking south. And I heard 3 o'clock church service. That's what was on the marquee. I grew up Catholic. And Catholics go to Mass in the morning. It's done in an hour, you go home.
Right.
And I sat in the back of that sanctuary and I heard a Reverend Alfred Miller preach a sermon that changed my life. He actually shouted to the congregation, God is alive in you. God is alive in you. And short story, it's a much longer one. I woke up the next morning and I said, don't pull the covers over your head, doubting and fearing. God is alive in you. Take pause and listen. And that's what I did. I listened in. Spirit said, make a phone call. Feel your divorce school of charm. I'm the beauty editor of Essence. Would you like me to come? Oh, we'd love to have you. And that one call increased my salary probably by 35% and really relieved me of a lot of pressure. And what I learned subsequently is not that just God is alive in us, but we are alive as the Holy Spirit. God is alive as us. The entity that created us put an aspect of itself within us. And I doubt, I fear, I lose faith and courage and all of that when I forget. When we remember who we are and that we were created by an entity to thrive and to give and to love, it reduces the pressure. It doesn't take courage. It takes passion and I think purpose.
That is so beautifully said. And I want to take, I could probably do like a book of Susan Taylor quotes.
Oh, Lord.
And One of my favorite ones, and you can play with me on this, but I take very seriously, is that we have to give ourselves to ourselves before we give ourselves to the world. I remember when you first taught me that. You want to say a little bit more about
Oh,
that?
you remember stuff that I don't remember. That's being young and fine. Listen, you have to give yourself to yourself before you give yourself away. And it's what we do, especially women. We get up and before even pausing and taking care of body, mind, spirit, what am I going to do today? Am I going to exercise? What am I going to eat? What thoughts am I going to hold? What is really important to this day? We just race through life. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted. We haven't spoken to people in ways that are integrity with who we are on the inside because we're rushing. And I think one of the most important articles I ever wrote for Essence, this is long before I became the editor-in-chief, it was called Quiet Time. Quiet time is the key to everything that we need. If we would only pause and allow that divinity that rests within us, by whatever name we call it, God, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, the divine intelligence that is at the core of who we are, is always trying to impress us, to speak to us, to guide us. And when we lay back and listen, we allow it to have its way with us. So giving yourself to yourself before you give yourself away is being in the quiet with yourself and listening in.
If there was one thing you did consistently as chief editor and now editor-in-chief emerita and as publications director that you would recommend that young editors always know to do, and maybe even people on both sides of the aisle, right? Because there's a blend, right, between the church and state that was so separated for us when we were there, but they kind of go together now. What would you say to everybody who's working to produce Essence is the one thing you must do to get a great story and to get a great magazine and a great product?
Know who you're serving.
Yes.
And there should be that division between church and state. And state needs to stay out of the church. But the church needs to always be watchful of the state, because the state is where the money comes from. And though we don't bow to our advertisers and sponsors, we have to know what displeases them. If it's something that the readers need, we have to find a way to deliver it. But it's so important that editors have independence and that they get to know the audience, that they get to know if it's at a festival or if it's a magazine or a newspaper, whatever it is, you have to know who you're serving. If it's a service publication, and that's very much what, Essence is. It's a service publication, and it's also one that creates a stage for Black women to have their say. A place where Black women get to know not just themselves, but one another, that we're not on the ledge alone. It's a place where things that are confounding us should be figured out. There's so much wisdom out there, and to have the opportunity to bring that wisdom to an audience that is hungering to know more about itself, more about how to serve self, how to serve community, how to move things forward. I think that's our major role. Know who you're serving and bow to that. Be faithful to the audience.
Most Essence readers are in the South, don't have a whole lot of money. That's mostly our audience. They skew a little bit older. And I think it's important to remember that, especially when you're sitting in New York and you see I remember when we were across the street from Condé Nast, and it can be hard to remember that this is who we are. That's why Festival is so amazing, because it gives us our reader, it lets us see who we are serving. And I know that you went through a lot. This is what I'm hoping you were saying.
This is what?
This is what I was hoping you were going to say. What about reader mail? How did that inform you?
Oh, Lord. People couldn't even believe it. But listen, anything the reader was writing, I was reading.
Anybody you discover in that process?
Iyanla Van Zandt was a reader of Essence and wrote a very beautiful letter. And I said, let's invite her in for a meeting. And she came, and the meeting went on and on. I said, let's order lunch. And we continued. And then we put her on a plane, I think the very next week, and sent her out to California to our beloved B.B. Moore Campbell, the novelist who passed away. And out of that, her first national piece. She wasn't speaking really anywhere or writing. And she just began to fly, and we have held on to those
Yes,
those wings of
indeed.
hers because
Yes,
she's amazing
indeed.
and still works beautifully with us. But yeah, Rita Mail, I spent a lot of time getting to know the Rita and traveling and speaking and listening. People came to hear, but then I would make myself available for hours as people would line up, have something I want to tell you, let me know. That really informed the content of the magazine, what
Yes.
women were thinking, feeling, and needing.
It's a fine line, right? Because you're both working to be aspirational, but you've also got an ear to the ground. Because if you don't, you want to lead and give people something to look at and say, yes, my life can be better. I know I needed that. Most of us.
But when you listen,
Right.
you know.
That's right.
If you're listening to sadness or joy or what people are aspiring, then you figure out with a team of editors, how do we deliver this in a compelling way that's going to engage the reader, inform her, and help to move her forward. Even with men, I took a lot of criticism. There was a lot of criticism when I decided that we were going to do a men's issue.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the editors didn't agree. But a brother came by my house one night and he said, I'm not dating black women anymore. And I said, rather than putting his behind out and being mad at him, hold your peace and listen. And I did. And I went to the magazine the next day and I said, we're going to do a men's issue. It became the biggest selling issue,
Every
the November issue. That's right.
Another great issue is Beauty at Any Age, our January annuity. I missed that. I've and you're living proof of what we put in the pages. I want to segue into the work that you've been doing for the last 20 years, since you handed the reins over to another generation of editors at Essence. But I want to do that by reminding people what you used to say that moved me so when I was lucky enough to sit around the table with you. And you would say that the work we do at Essence is not just a mission, but it's a
mandate.
And tell me, what's our mandate to black women?
Oh gosh, it's to all of us. Because it's not just black women who are here to serve. We forget that we are the most privileged black people on this planet. We have more education, we have more resources, we have more opportunities, more choices. And along with that comes a huge responsibility. It's really an honor to be able to serve. And if you don't know your history, then you think your life is hard every day. Things we know can be difficult, and these are really very difficult times. But I am so glad that I am not on somebody's plantation and it's not 1789. That we can choose how we move forward. We can choose what we think. We can choose the kind of work that we want to do. We can choose to go to school. We can choose to find another gig, be inventive, start your own business. We have choices that we must never forget.
You can choose to leave, right? In one way or another. Plenty of people who don't have very much are moving all around and away from where they came. Right? That's the whole migration story, right? I love that. And so, thank you for leading us on this journey, because we're going to get our children and we're going to serve our women, we're going to serve our families, and we're going to serve our community, because that's the Essence way.
That's why we're here.
Cares way.
It's why we were created.
Yes.
We were created to serve, and that service begins with self. So thank you so much.
I love you, Susan.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
Thank you.